All right, what's happening, everyone? Hope you're having a good day. So my brother is down and he brought his Jeep with him. 2020 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Willys. So I figured I would take it for a little test drive. Before we take it, I will do a little walk around. It is windy as always. As always, if you've been to this channel a long time, you know it's more windy than not. Overall, a good looking truck. Very aggressive tires. I wonder what he thinks of these tires, because there's always a fine line when you do upgrades to vehicles. Looks versus usability, I call it. So he does a lot of driving, and these look very, very aggressive. So it's a good look, but it's probably terrible to drive that in the city and whatnot, but you know, we'll have to ask him that. I like the black grill in front, looks really good. Willys on the side, I'd probably take that off, I don't know. Love the color. And this is the 4-cylinder turbo engine. So overall, a good looking Jeep. I like the Jeep a lot, you guys know that, but I really like the redesign. Small little upgrades here and there. Love the bumper. Other than that, it's pretty much a typical Jeep. This little rock slider action, that's cool. Soft top, which is a lot easier to take down than it used to be. I mean, it's a pretty basic exterior, but that's what the Jeep is. It's all about utility. 4x4, of course. Nice tail lights. You gotta go 4-door in these Jeeps nowadays. Well, or else, you know, there's just, in the 2-door, there's just no room. I guess it depends on what you want your vehicle for. So he has the seats down, and you get a lot of room back here when the seats are down. A lot of room for a lot of different things. You could put the seats up, obviously seats go to here, and then you still get a big trunk, and that's the best part about the 4-door Jeeps. Still got the speakers on top like the old ones. Definitely nice looking. Let's check out the front real quick. So comment below what you think about 4-cylinder turbo option versus the Pentastar 6-cylinder. Definitely an upgrade on the interior from the ones that I've been in. I haven't been in one in a couple years, but it was pretty base inside most of them. This looks a little upgraded. Not much of a center console. I mean, it is what it is. You can fit a couple drinks. There's a little slot in there. Love this look, love this layout. This doesn't have the biggest screen available for the Jeep. I think this is a 7-inch, and they also make the 8.4 Uconnect. But not a bad looking truck. It's basic, but it's not basic in a bad way. It's basic because it is what it is. And like I said, it's all about the utility. And these things can go anywhere, we know that. So let's take it for a ride and we will see what we got. One more shot of it. Comment below, tell me what you think of the look of these things. Here's a quick look at the gauge cluster. Pretty neat looking. Toggle through, see what you got. Tire pressure, drivetrain, fuel economy, your trip, stats from it. Yeah, the basics, pretty much what everything gives you nowadays. You get your radio options in there as well. Not a bad looking setup. I gotta be honest with you, like I said, from the older Jeeps, this is a lot nicer. And then your miles per hour, which everyone seems to leave it on that. Screen looks pretty good. Uconnect system is one of the best in the game today for sure. It took me a while to figure out that not only can you touch screen, but you still got your manual buttons down here. It has, this is kind of weird for me. So it has your climate control along with your volume with the radio. Everything's kind of just mixed in right here. I'm sure after a couple days of owning it, no big deal. This took me a sec too. Your window buttons are in the center, which is an old school Jeep thing too. I remember that. I believe my 2012 had it down here, but yeah, so your window buttons are in the center. Not bad. Not a bad center stack here. Infotainment is pretty cool. Like I said, if you've never used Uconnect, it is very, very user friendly. Like I said, you get climate control and whatnot. That's pretty cool. But overall, yeah, not bad. Seating position is interesting. You're definitely in a Jeep, you know it. And this windshield is sticking straight up, so, you know, the gas mileage is a lot better than it's ever been in Jeeps, but it is still something that you might want to think about if you're someone who does a lot of driving and you need your gas mileage to be good. But if you don't care, I mean, you don't buy a Jeep for gas mileage, obviously. So if you don't care, this thing is pretty sweet. So, all right, let's take it for a spin, see what we think. Got you on a little bit of a different angle today. There's not many places to put the camera in here. So we'll see what we're all about. It feels so weird. This driving position feels so weird. I feel too big for it. But it is a Jeep, like I said. Going from the 2-door that I had to this 4-door, though, is definitely the way to go. Way more reasons to own a Jeep. One of the things I did not care for was the 2-door. There was just no space in it whatsoever. Every time I went down to play hockey, which I played hockey about 40 minutes away, I had to take my wife's Honda because it wouldn't fit my goalie bag in the back of it. But let's see what this thing feels like here. I'll be honest with you, first impression, very noisy vehicle. I thought there was a truck parked in front of my father's house when I just had it sitting there idling. It's a quite, I mean, it's got a little bit of noise to it. Mind you, it's the 4-cylinder turbo. It moves pretty well. I mean, first impression of it as far as driving it, it moves a lot cleaner than the one that I used to own, but that was years ago. It feels like it really wants to go. Yeah, no slouch whatsoever. Wow. It's kind of surprising how well it moves. And, you know, when I told everybody my brother got one of these Jeep Wranglers, you know, the first thing they said was, I hope he didn't get that 4-cylinder turbo option, which is shared with some of the Fiats, because that reliability-wise isn't the greatest thing. Well, he did lease this. He's going to have this thing for, I think it's 3 years. I'll try to talk to him at the end of this video and just see what he thinks about it overall. And as far as the driving of this vehicle right now, suspension-wise at least, it has that feeling of being in a Jeep. So we're headed directly into the wind right now, and if you've ever driven a Wrangler, you know that it really is sensitive to any kind of wind. So if you're, you know, obviously a lot of vehicles, truck-wise, anything that's lifted up a little bit is a little sensitive when it comes to wind. But this thing, you know, you really got to pay attention to it with this windshield. This windshield's like a big sail. It sticks up, you know, right into the air. If you got an 18-wheeler next to you, you could definitely feel the draft coming off the 18-wheeler. If you're on the side of it, you can feel the turbulence. But it's something that you know what you're getting into. You're not expecting a nice, smooth Lexus ride when you're driving these things. It's a Jeep. These are meant to go off-road for sure. But, you know, the way the Jeep engineers did it is it's meant to go off-road, but they still wanted to give you some drivability for on-road, because they know that a lot of people buy these vehicles just to have them on-road like a normal car. And I think they've really done a great job just in the first, you know, not even 5 minutes of driving this thing. It feels a lot smoother than my old one did. And I've had a couple, and my father had a 2012 Unlimited, the 4-door like this, and this thing feels better than all 3 of them. And the truck my father used to have had some very street-worthy tires, we should say. It was a Sport, I think they call it a Sport S, and the tires, you know, they didn't have massive tread on them like these ones do. These ones here have that, you know, aggressive look to them, but the one my father had pretty much on-road only tires. It could probably do some, you know, a little bit of beach and some fire trails, but this thing has big aggressive tires, and I thought I would be feeling them a lot more than I do. You could hear them, the road noises there. I don't know how good the camera's picking it up, but look at that. This thing picks up speed nice. I'm a little impressed with that. But like I was saying with my brother, he's got it on a lease, so reliability isn't really the first thing on his mind, because he's only going to have it for probably 3 years, you know, around 36,000 miles. So it's not the end of the world. He's not trying to have it super long term or anything. But I mean, it's a fun little pickup. Good for him. All right, so after driving this thing for a little while, one thing they definitely have corrected is the transmission. So in the older Jeeps, the transmission always felt like it was searching around for a gear. It never felt like it was in the right gear, and if you slowed down, it almost seemed like the automatic transmission would get confused. This thing seems like it's way smoother. No issues. It seems like it knows when to shift, when not to shift. You know, if you put your foot down on the pedal, it doesn't take a couple seconds for it to understand that you want to go faster. It just feels very responsive. And that's going to be the thing I take away from this with the Jeep. I never thought I would be in a Jeep like this that has this much of a responsive feel as far as engine. Handling wise, like I said, it's a Jeep. And that's another theme of this video. It's a Jeep. You know, it doesn't handle terribly, but it does float around the road a little bit, and you know, you get used to it after a while. But overall, you know, you hit a bump, you're gonna feel it. The tires are way better than I thought they'd be, but you definitely feel them under you, and you could hear them for sure. A noisy vehicle, but you get what you get when you buy a Jeep. So overall, a pleasurable little drive with this thing. We'll do more reviews with it down the road the more I see my brother, but just for our first little quick ride, when I heard he was coming down, I was like, let me just take that thing for a spin and see how the Jeep is. Not bad at all, not bad at all. I would love to take this thing on a road trip, like on the highway for a few hours, and see how I feel about it afterward. Driving around the town here a little bit, you know, around 30 miles an hour is pleasurable. I could see myself owning one of these. You know, I know my father wants to look into one of these. One of his, you know, 53 vehicles he's thinking of buying is a Wrangler, because he goes on the beach a lot, so he wants something with a little utility. No matter what you say about FCA or Chrysler products, the Wrangler is amazing at the end of the day. I mean, you got to know what you're getting. That's the big thing. I've actually heard of people buying Wranglers just because, oh yeah, I heard they're cool, and then they have them for a year and they're trying to trade out of them because they weren't ready for what you need to be ready for when you buy a Wrangler. A pretty rough ride, you know, a lot of noise in the cabin, especially if you get the Sunride or soft top. But you know, the Wrangler is amazing, and I'm glad they still offer it, and I'm glad they're still, you know, making upgrades on it and next generations and whatnot. And I'm also glad, this is probably the #1 thing, I'll always have a little soft spot in my heart for the Wrangler, as I have owned too. But one thing they've done that I really applaud them on, and I hope they keep doing, is when these new generations come out and they are changing things about the vehicle, it's still a Jeep Wrangler at the end of the day. They're not changing it to the point where it's something that doesn't look anything like what it used to. They know what they have here. This is the crown jewel of FCA, and if it's not, it very much should be because of what it is, and they are keeping it very close to home, and that's a good thing. Upgrade, why not? But it still looks like a Jeep, acts like a Jeep. I'm going down a pretty bumpy road right now, and I don't know if you heard my voice crack right there, because of this is where you really got to know what you're buying, because this, you know, kind of swims all over the road a little bit, and you feel every little bump. But what you got to tell your friends, you know, when you're taking them for a ride in it, is basically, guys, it's a Wrangler. It is what it is. It may be uncomfortable, but you know, if the Armageddon comes, you're going to want to be in something like this, because it could get over anything. And even in a package like the Willys, which if any of the Jeep guys are watching this, you can back me up on this, because you guys know more than I do about these vehicles, but this is pretty much a sport, like a higher end sport, Jeep Wrangler Sport, you know, with a couple Willys edition stuff on it, like the wheels and tires. I mean, the Rubicon, as far as the trim, is really loaded up. You get the bigger screen, you get a few different things on the interior as far as luxury features, you know, leather seats and stuff like that. The Sahara really has all of the luxury trim stuff you would really want on it. Like I said, this is more of a beefed up sport edition, you know, with bigger wheels and tires, but you know, I would want this. I probably would want this. I mean, this is going to do the job. From the bottom of the trims to the top of the trims of the Wrangler, the things are meant to go, you know, take you off-road wherever you want to go, which is awesome. You're not giving up anything by going to the trims as far as you know, capability. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Rubicon has a more tuned suspension for off-road, but at the end of the day, they all are meant to go off-road, and that is another great thing about the Jeep. So I'm going to pull this thing into the driveway, and we're going to see what my brother thinks about it. He's owned it now for, I'd say, 2 weeks, so he's driving to and from work, and he had a 2.5 hour trip down here. So let's get a 2-second conversation with him and see what he thinks about his Wrangler.
So my first 2 weeks of ownership, to be honest with you, I haven't been able to get out on it too often because we're still in lockdown mode in New York, but I love it around the neighborhood. We've had the top down a couple of times, which is primarily the reason I want. I just wanted a fun vehicle, and for the summer, that's also good in the snow, and that's, for me, that's the Jeep. On the highway, you know, it's not the Honda Accord I'm coming out of. I can't zip in and out of traffic with it. I can't push it to 90, but you know, it holds its own as far as I'm concerned. As long as you're holding on to the steering wheel with 2 hands, you'll be okay. And I got no regrets right now, and I know it'll be awesome in the snow, and I just want that top down as often as possible during the summer, and that's it.